This is what Tonex really needs. Hey guys, it's John here. I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to talk about Tonex by IK Multimedia, a platform that I really like. However, there's one thing that this platform really needs, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm not only going to give my opinion, but I also asked you guys for your opinion. So we're going to check out what you guys said as well. Now, what is so great about Tonex? Well, the main thing that is so great about Tonex is the sound quality. So the captures, the accuracy of the captures or tone models, as IK Multimedia calls them, is really great. Out of all the commercial platforms, it's definitely one of the best ones, if not the most accurate one. It's that good. And there's also a wealth of tones out there. I release my own packs as well that you can get in my web store, by the way. And I love just how accurately I can capture my amplifiers. So that's all cool. Now, you have to make the tone models on your computer, of course, which isn't ideal in my opinion. I mean, some other platforms also rely on a computer for that, but I would prefer, to be able to make this on some hardware unit, which we'll get to. But there are already some hardware units released. They released the Tonex pedal first, which is this guy over here. It's not too large. It has 3-foot switches. You can tweak the amp settings, etc. So it's a cool pedal, but the display is very dated. It's very old school. Then they also released the smaller Tonex 1, of course, which is fun. It's amazing how good this pedal actually sounds, in terms of how small it is versus how massive the tones can be. And then they also released the Tonex plug, which is great, but it's just not for me, so I don't have one. So they went smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think that they need to go bigger, and that's what this video is about. So I think they need to, compete with products like the Quad Cortex, the Fractal Audio FM9 or XFX3, the Line 6 Helix Stadium, etc. And I think it could really bring Tonex as a platform to the next level. It would be wonderful if we could get a floor modeler with a nice user interface, with a touchscreen with nice graphics, because if you know IK Multimedia's Amplitude, they know how to make beautiful graphics. How cool would it be to have those graphics incorporated into a hardware unit with a touchscreen, right? Of course, plenty of switches as well for the live player. And here's a big one. I think it needs to be an audio interface as well. And what could be nice about that is that you could create your captures on the unit itself, either as the unit as your audio interface, or just do the whole process on the unit itself. And I have some thoughts about that as well. But the thing is, with Tonex, since we all have to create our tone models on our computer, we're all going to use different interfaces, different, input levels, etc., etc. If we had a modeler from IK Multimedia, the process would be much more streamlined between all the different users. So the whole process could be done on the hardware unit itself, like on the Quad Cortex, for example. And then everybody would basically have the same hardware to create the captures with, okay? Also to play through the captures with, since it's going to be your audio interface. So I think that could be a big one, with high quality ins and outs, some mic pre's perhaps for 2 different microphones, stuff like that. That would be wonderful. Now, if they were to make a unit on which you could make the tone models themselves, so with internal processing, I assume that that would cost more, of course, than a unit that relies on a computer, for example, for the processing. Or a cloud, so you could do Wi-Fi, just like they're planning with the Helix Stadium, I assume. So that if you create a capture on the unit, you'll send it to the cloud via Wi-Fi, and then when it's done, it gets sent back to your unit. But they could also make a more expensive unit with, some sort of special CPU or GPU so that you could do all the processing inside the unit itself in batch. And that would be so cool, because then you'd not run into problems with compatibility with your computer. If you don't have a fast GPU with Tonex, you have to wait a very long time for those advanced models. That's not ideal. So it would make the process across everybody, all the users, much more streamlined, I think. So that is a big one for me. I hope they'll make a hardware unit that either allows you to, use that as your audio interface and then do the processing on your computer. That's not ideal, but worst case scenario. But at least then the ins and outs will be, very easy to use, and the same for everybody as long as you have that hardware unit. Or do it via cloud processing so that you don't even need to touch your computer. You make the captures itself on the unit, and then for the processing, it's sent to the cloud and then sent back to your unit, or just a unit which does it all. And I would be prepared to pay more in order to get a hardware unit that does it all inside of the unit itself. That would be so awesome. Now, the question would be, if they released a hardware unit, will it have amp modeling as well, or just the tone models, or just capturing, right? Now, they do have the Amplitube platform, which is a fun platform. It has a wide variety of amplifiers and a wide variety of effects. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of that older amp modeling tech. I just don't think it's good enough in comparison to more modern platforms and in comparison to Tonex itself. So yeah, they could include those for fun, although it might be difficult with all the licensing since they have like Mesa Boogie amps and Orange amps and all that stuff. Maybe they could create some new tech, or simply just rely on tone models. And if they did that, they could sort of get somebody to curate a collection of stock models, perhaps, together with people like me. So people who are on ToneNet and selling their captures there, which I'm also doing. So that could be nice. But of course, it's a little bit more limited in terms of tweakability in comparison to white box amp modeling, if you will. But still, it would sound really good. And what I do appreciate about Tonex is how you can tweak everything, including the frequency of certain tone stacks and stuff. So it is quite tweakable, I must say, which I like. You can do presence, depth, etc. But then they could add all the effects from Amplitube, because those effects I think are pretty good. So then you could have like drive pedals up front, delays, multiple delays, just like all the other platforms. It would have to be really flexible in terms of the signal flow and all of that stuff. You can't have a platform that is very limited in that market if it's a larger amp modeler that wants to compete with something like the Quad Cortex, in my opinion anyway. Anyway, so those are some basic thoughts that I had. Now, I asked you guys as well on various places. So let's check out what you guys said about this. Let's go to my channel. I did a post, a community post, and you guys did comments. So let's read some of those comments, okay? I'm not going to try to read all your names because I'm really bad at that stuff. I always mispronounce your name. So let's start with the top comment here. A larger Tonex for me needs to be able to run 2 or more captures at the same time. So that's a big thing. People want to run 2 captures at the same time. I guess either in parallel or maybe in front of each other. So if you have a capture of a drive block, a drive pedal, for example, you want to put it in front of the amp block, of course. So that could be cool. And that's a good point for sure. And it needs to have a pitch shifter, detuner, and a harmonizer. I would buy that in a heartbeat. Yeah, a pitch shifter is cool. I mean, most, if not all, the major platforms do have a pitch shifter, right? Next one, just simple Tonex with the effects collection of Amplitube. There you go. Something in a rack format would be great. Built-in 4 to 16 ohm power amp with independent EQ and power switch. Effects loop, different outputs, clean DI, output for patches with and without cab. Interesting. A built-in power amp could be cool. Maybe they could make a version with power amp and a version without. I don't know. Native NOM and Amplitube. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's fine if they just keep it within the Tonex infrastructure. It should have the Sonus Stomp Station Pro. I don't know what that is. 2 native NOM at the same time. Multi-effects, 8 blocks, 2 in, 2 out. Android app, $3.99 pre-order. That's what it should have. Yeah, you can kiss that $3.99 pre-order goodbye. Android app would be great. But if it's a really complex unit, you won't really be able to do all the tweaking on your Android, I think. But maybe for like organizing tone models and stuff, that could be cool. A proper screen, full MIDI and Bluetooth MIDI, 4 capture blocks. Wow. Left and right channel amp captures, drive and fuzz captures. I think with 3 you could get away with a lot, you know, just to have one pedal capture up front and then 2 amp blocks. But if they were to add a bunch of drive, you know, models, so not like captures, but just like models from Amplitube and stuff, I personally would not need a capture block for drive pedals, but that's just me. Properly good stereo effects, obviously. Captures within the unit itself, like I said, exportable to the library on your computer later. Cross functionality between Tonex and Amplitube offerings. Ability to transpose up or down. Specific output routing options. Example, one output with an IR applied and the other without an IR. That's cool. MIDI functionality. Color touchscreen. I agree. Ability to run multiple inputs through separate models. Example, one guitar through a Marshall, one guitar through a Mesa, and a bassist through an Orange with all their own effects. That could be cool. It's a lot to ask for, but that could be cool. A touchscreen expression pedal, nice for your wah-wah. Bluetooth iPad app. Wi-Fi connectivity, everything built into the unit to create clones, and I hope they continue to add new effects, yes. And a usable noise gate. I agree, the gate could be a little bit better, in my opinion. I don't want a larger unit, but I would like the actual unit to have distinct stereo path where you can change amp, cab, and wet effects. All input and outputs are already there. I mean, multiple effects loops are always welcome, I think, especially if you want to use a thing like that with your real amplifier and run multiple mics and stuff, which is what I'm doing with my Fractal Audio FM9. Loading plugins. That is a comment that I got from various people. I'm not sure about that, because that would have a lot of that would get a lot of issues with compatibility and stuff. So I don't think that that's ideal to, you know, have it be able to load plugins, but who knows? Multiple out routing capabilities, etc. Yes, so a lot of people are saying the same things, preferably 2 DI outs and 2 regular amp outs and some decent bass amp cabs. So the stock cabs from Amplitube are quite cool with the way you can position the mics around and change the speakers. So they already have a really cool cabinet platform in terms of stock cabs in Amplitube. Integrate a power amp to drive a speaker, like the Lichtlarm Audio, Pandora, or Orange Terror Stamp. Yeah. So you're not the first to say that. An effects loop and XLR balanced outputs. Yes, of course, I agree. It needs flexible inputs and outputs. I do agree. It needs full support for not only Tonex, but Amplitube modeling as well. The ability to process 2 guitar inputs and bass at the same time. Yes. Just copy everything Neural has and I'd be fine with that. Or gives a touchscreen Amplitube Tonex. I was okay with how the app looked if you put that on the Quad Cortex size unit. The software experience for me was awful. I got rid of my Tonex pedal. Sorry to hear that. At least 4 switches, 3 capture blocks, 2 drives plus 1 amp, fully customizable chain. I agree. A real noise gate and the ability to launch NAM captures as it may be the industry standard for the next years. Yeah, I don't know. The ability to load any plugin. That's a tough one. That's going to be really hard, guys. IK Multimedia has a very attractive UI in their computer software. It would be great to have a Tonex with a big screen with a similar UI than Amplitube or Tonex software. It's difficult to compete with quality sound because all the contenders sound very good. I think they should compete with something eye-catching. Yeah, it should look beautiful for sure, and definitely more modern than the current Tonex pedal. An app like the Tonex plug has, the PC program for Tonex is very clunky. It's a little bit clunky for sure. Being able to amp capture without buying the IK Multimedia Tonex Capture AI-powered amp capturing device. Yeah, on the device itself. Battery powered, Bluetooth connection plus mobile app. Possibility to use 2 captures parallel to each other. Memory for input trim for different guitars. That's a good one. LCD display, send and return. What is the need for competition? Just make the best you have now and make the standard. A lot of these companies are making half-finished products yet get paid big salaries for doing what exactly? Taking others' time, learning, evaluating, and more, and the people that did that work don't get paid at all. Lol. Okay, anyway. So, he's not very enthusiastic. They absolutely need to clean up and streamline the whole software experience, making it easier and much more clear how to manage presets, tone models, etc. All right, yeah, sure enough. That doesn't really have to do with hardware per se. The platform sounds great for amps, but they need a whole complete ecosystem and they are very far behind on many aspects. UI, drives, effects, EQs, routing, patches, reverbs, delays. They would have to beat Kemper and QC. They need good sturdy pro hardware, good switches with quick switching, lights and display, good outputs, etc. I don't think they are up for it, to be honest. Somebody else says, I would like to see full-on modeling capturing, if that makes sense. So basically, I'd like to see a unit that can capture every aspect of an amp, not just a capture, like full-on modeling. The bass, mid and treble knobs should be fully captured. You know, I thought about that, but that's going to take a lot of work also for the user. So I don't know if that is realistic. I don't know. Make me not suck. All right. Definitely shared USB connectivity for power supply and data transfer. Variable effect chain, no restriction on how often an effect can be used. CPU monitor, option to display IR length to distinguish high quality from low quality files on the fly, etc., etc. So, a lot of people are thinking the same things. Now, I also asked people on Facebook the same question. And let's see if people added some stuff here. Wah block, of course, more modulation, pitch particular for us EVH fans, the option to have modeled drive before amp, the modeled amp, onboard expression, oh yes. Virtual capo, decent noise gate, XLR out, overdrive block, more foot switches and something like scene preset stomp mode. I do agree. Also run more than one capture at the same time. Balanced and unbalanced outs. Yes, definitely a block for drive boost pedals in front and a pitch shift function. Also more different sample rates. I agree with that. I don't like it when a modeler has a fixed sample rate. Latency-free monitoring when using it as an interface, of course, yes. Amplitude, flexibility and features would be ideal. If everything from that universe could be ported into the Tonex realm, you'd have a viable contender. XLR, effects loop, yes. XLR, decent editor. Current one is awful, says this person. 8-foot switches, dual amp and cab, all the basic effects, some more advanced and original. At least 12 blocks, free order for the blocks, obviously. XLR outs, 2 to 4 external loops. Don't really care for a touchscreen, but it's a plus and the current rage. Do agree. XLR out, possibility to have IRs on the XLR out. So yeah, separate outputs for IRs and not IRs. More blocks and effects. Yes, amp models, compression, reverb ain't cutting it for me. They have all the effects and amplitude that they could add. Yeah, I guess the licensing thing would be an issue perhaps. Because there are so many, you know, like special packs from special brands and everything. Lots of I/O and balanced inputs. Nice one. 2 expression inputs and config for control ranges. 100 wet is not always desirable. My only wish would be a way to split the outputs IR and no IR. It already does everything else spectacularly. Rack version with 2 amps, 2 cab logs. I mean, a rack version could be cool, but that would sell, you know, less than, you know, a floor unit, I think. So this guy doesn't like their software, multiple instances of capture. So a lot of people, again, are thinking the same things. Let's check some more comments. This is on my Sonic Drive Studio Facebook page. Decent noise gate, overdrive block, XLR out, transpose. Realistically, it's got to do most, if not all, of what the other modelers do if it wants to compete. Enough power to run multiple amps, a great range of effects, flexible routing, snapshot mode, flexible parameter controls. So basically everybody wants it to be able to do everything, which I do agree with if they want to release something that competes with everything, if you will. Dual amps, of course, better gate, overdrive block, touchscreen. Somebody wants T-Racks in there as well. Could be fun, could be fun. Larger format with 4-foot switches and the ability to load your entire rig, yes. Stereo inputs, etc. So everybody is basically saying the same thing. Even if it wasn't a touchscreen, the display should probably be something that doesn't look like it's from 1985. I do agree. It looks like the screen from the Time Machine in Back to the Future. Makes me a better player. Obviously, the front panel, like the QC Big with the touchscreen, option to have an IR on or off for the LR outputs, at least 8-foot switch buttons, and not be $2,000. Well, good luck with that. You know, if they add everything, it's going to be expensive. You can count on that. A couple more. I've not been able to create one sound with amplitude product that could remotely approach the tones that I get with my fractal units. I'm sure it's an inability to do so, but I wouldn't bother with any of their products. That's strange. I think it sounds great. It sounds like my amps, basically. Non-IR and IR in parallel, yes, that's what a lot of people have said. Stronger DSP to run a pedal and an amp both in series, of course. Stereo amp setup or possibly dual setup in parallel. Yeah. And then final one, their Z-tone impedance control and pure JFET input stages from the Axe.io. I love that. That's a good one. So yeah. IK Multimedia, you guys know what to do now. We've given you advice based on what we think you should add into a wonderful, massive, and modern hardware unit. Let's do it. We're here for it. You know, we'll get one, right guys? We'll get one. So let's do this. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found this useful. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below if you have any additional thoughts on what IK Multimedia should do with the bigger Tonex platform. Also, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. If you want to support this channel, you can get something in my affiliate links for Tone and Sweetwater, or get something in my web store, like a Tonex pack, for example. That really helps out the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Cheers.